Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Defanny Tiara Rossa. I'm a student of English Education Department or PBI, Class A and fourth semester. And in here, I would like to present to you all about the material streams in educational philosophy and Islamic educational philosophy. There are a lot of materials and streams that appears in these materials, and the first material is philosophy and educational science. There are two questions that appeared or that related to this material. The first one is what was the school actually built for, and then what should educators do to lead students to realize the goals above. And the answer to the first question is the concept or premise that education requires an institution outside the family, which has a role in fostering ideal society. Meanwhile, the second answer is the concept about the content and process of education that bring together the potential of students and the descriptions of the ideal human according to society and the nations or state. And the second is educational philosophy. Previously, it has been formulated that educational philosophy is a science which is essentially the answer to the questions in the field of education. Because it is philosophical in itself, this educations and this educational philosophy is essentially the application of a philosophical analysis to the field of education. The relationship between philosophy and education is a must. John Dewey said the philosophy is the general theory of education, the foundations of all thinking about education. The philosophy of education need to be studied by those who deepen knowledge of education and teacher training. Because of what? Because there are several reasons for this material, and then the first one is educational problems that arise from time to time, which are of concern to each expert. And then many me there are many writings or books are produced by thought experts, and it is not uncommon for the ideas of one expert to influence the other expert. And the second, philosophy is a provision for critically reviewing education and its problems. Because anyone who studies educational philosophy can have views that reach beyond things that are found experimentally or empirically. And the third is intellectual and academic demands can be fulfilled. Based on the principle that philosophizing is logically coherent and critical thinking, philosophizing in education means having that kind of ability. And the next material is course streams of educational philosophy. The streams of modern educational philosophy is reviewed by from these three streams. There are ontology, epistemology, and axiology. Okay, the first is ontology, examining everything that is real and how things really are. In a sense, the real world is limited to our five senses. To explain more clearly, ontology means the science of nature which investigated the real world and how it really is. What is the essence behind the real world? Ontology investigates the nature of things from the real world, which are very limited to our five senses, such as hearing, seeing, and other five senses. And the second is epistemology. Epistemology examines how humans capture and acquire knowledge from various types of knowledge. Epistemology is knowledge that seeks to answer questions such as what knowledge is, how humans acquire and capture knowledge, and types of knowledge. According to Muhammad Nur Sham, epistemology discusses source process, requirements, limits of facilities, and the nature of knowledge. Because if it will be used in making and completing the curriculum that will be implemented. And the third is axiology, studying about how to evaluate something and compiling the curriculum that will be no, I'm sorry, studying about how I evaluate something because the world of education will not be far from an assessment. According to Muhammad Nur Shamsuddin, axiology is an education that examines and integrates all of these values in human life. Henceforth, these values are instilled in the personality of students. Uh, and the next material is another streams of educational philosophy are naturalism, idealism, realism, and pragmatism. And the first one is naturalism. Naturalism, which means reality, is the philosophy of this world. This view that the real reality is the physical universe, seeing that everything comes from nature. This means that the reality is not spiritual or supernatural. And the second is idealism. Idealism stands that reality is composed of substance, content, element, and substance, just like ideas. This nature is an expression of the universals. You know, the universals is the God because nature depends on God, right? The souls occupies the main place in the compositions of the universe because what appears to the human sense is sometimes different from the real world. And the third is realism. Realism holds the view that objects in the external world are self-existent and are not entirely depend on the universe spirit and the soul that knows it. It uh, we may have inaccurate knowledge of a real object, but conversely, we may also have an accurate picture of the object from the what it appears. Therefore, conducting observations, research, and determining conclusion is needed to obtain an accurate pictures directly or indirectly. And the fourth is pragmatism. Pragmatism means that the use of some things is placed above the knowledge itself. Everyone has a role in developing or creating the things he knows. This means that the determining elements in the developing that knowledge are the actions of those who have that knowledge. Okay, move to the next material is about the stream philosophy in of Islamic educations. Uh, Besides education philosophy, there are Islamic philosophy. Uh, there are five streams: progressivism, essentialism, perennialism, reconstructionalism, and existentialism. And the first one is about progressivism. The streams of progressivism is associated with a liberal outlook on life, the liberal road to culture. What it means by this is a view of life that has the following characteristic. The first one is flexible, not rigid, not resistant to change, not bound by a particular doctrine. Second, curious, want to know more, want to investigate more, and tolerant and open-minded, have an open heart. Uh, Renewal's effort in the field of education are generally driven by progressivism. Because change always occurs, their implementations requires flexibility in the sense that they are not rigid, not running away from change, not bound by certain doctrines. And the characteristic of the progressivism generally grouped into positive and negative. It is said to be negative because progressivism reject authoritarianism and absolutism in all forms, such as those found in religions, politics, ethics, and epistemology. And the other side's positive because in the sense of progressivism refers to the natural strengths that human inherit from nature from birth, and the development of progressivism, progressivism emerged in the mid 19th century, and the modern principles since the 16th century have contribute ideas to the process of progressivism. And also progressivism believes about education according to the way the overall goals of education is democratic citizenship. Educational content prioritize subjects such as science, history, skill, and things that are useful or directly experienced by the community. The science method is more important, not memorizing as we have to do in the past. Yeah, it's not about memorization. And the second is about essentialism. For essentialism, wait. For essentialism, education that is based on that view is easily shaken and lacks directions. Because of that, essentialism views that education must be based on values that have clarity and longevity, so as to provide stability and clear directions. Standing on education that is full of flexibility, where everything is open to change, tolerant, and has no attachment to certain doctrines. And the main character of the propagator of essentialism, there are Desiderius Erasmus, who was the first to reject the other world views. Erasmus tried to make the school curriculum humanistic and international so that it could include the middle class and the aristocracy. The next is Johann Amos Comenius argues that because of the world is basically dynamic and has a purpose, education plays a role in shaping children to become God's will. And the next is John Locke, a world thinker who argues that education should always be close to situations uh, and conditions. Locke also had a school for poor children. And the third is perennialism. Perennialism, these understandings refers to the past, which is considered better than the present because of the crises have arisen. The past is the solutions. The past is the solutions because its power is no longer a trial, right? A trial. Because that's why this school believes in eternity. The search of principle of these schools consists of two cultural philosophies, namely theological and secular school. Perennialism education principle. These streams contributes to the emergence of curriculum at every level of students. This perennialism leaders spark and continued to develop human potentials. Thomas Aquinas stated that the purpose of education is more to try to actualize the ability that a person has. So the teacher must help students to develop their potential. And the fourth is Reconstructionism. This understanding changed or renews the old order to the new order through institutions and education, in accordance with the terms that are owned, namely seeking the broadest agreement and the greatest opportunities regarding the main and the highest goals that exist in human. One of the few of world leaders who might be inspired by the thoughts of the schools is one of the formulations no limit to learning, bridging the human gaps. And the last material is about existentialism. This philosophical school focuses more on life experience as a source of education because these schools reject freedom such as abstract, illogical, or scientific thinking. Humans are almost extinct in the Second World War invites reaction from these streams. In understanding, the philosopher himself does not have a definite definition, but its own meaning confronts man only to himself. In other words, adherents this flow are more focused on the experiences they go through, their self-confidence to achieve they believe. Okay, for the conclusions, it can be concluded that there are a lot of trends that appears in the educational philosophy or Islamic education philosophy, but philosophy have always had always related to educations because in educations we are implemented the philosophical by the expert, and then there are a lot of such as ontology, epistemology, axiology. So the apa? What's that? Like perennialism, existentialism, and etc. We have just discussed about that. So that's all I can explain to you, and thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, and then see you in the next video or the next presentation.